Hey guys, what is up? In this video, you are going to learn how to take your first steps with GitHub. For Git beginners, there are basically two main things you would want to do with Git. The first one is to clone an existing repo. Let's say you're watching a YouTube video or taking an online course and the instructor gives you a link to a GitHub repo. The second thing beginners would want to do is to create a new repo to safely store their own project. So in this video, we're going to cover these two scenarios plus some Git basics like creating commits and pushing and pulling from the remote server. Now, before we even touch that, you need to make sure you have Git installed on your computer. The easiest way to check is to go to Visual Studio Code, then go to the terminal menu and open a new terminal. Now you can just type git. If you receive these instructions like I did, it means you already have Git. If you have an error instead, then you need to install Git first. To do that, just go to Google and search for Git install. You can just click the first search result and follow the instruction for your operating system. For Windows, we just need to scroll down a bit, and here we have the link to download the Git installer. Install it on your computer, then go to Visual Studio Code and run git to see if you received these instructions like I did. If you did, then we are now ready to go ahead. So let's start by cloning an existing repo. This is a GitHub repo that I use in one of my videos. Students watching my videos will want to clone this repo so they can work in the code on their computer. So in that case, we would just go here where it says code and then copy the link to clone this repo. Now we need to go to the place where we want to create the folder for this project. So I'm going to go to File, Open Folder. And I don't have a folder for this project yet. And it is a mistake to create one because when you clone the repo, Git will automatically create the folder for you. So instead, you can just open the location where you want to place the project, for example, desktop, and you can open with Visual Studio Code. Now open a new terminal and type git clone and then paste the link you just copied. So now we just clone the repo, and if we go to the desktop, you will see that now the folder has been created in that location. So now we can go back to Visual Studio Code and open the folder for this project. So this is the folder we just created while cloning. I'm gonna open it. So now we have this project running on our computer and we can start writing some code for it. Now let's go to the next scenario, which would be creating a new repo for your project. So for that, I'm going to go back to the desktop. I'm going to create a new folder. This project is going to be called GitHub Basics. And now I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code and open this project. Now we can start adding files. Let's create an HTML file to get started. Now let's create a new repo to safely store this project on GitHub. Let's go to github.com and log in to your GitHub account or click sign up to create a new one. Since I already have a GitHub account, I'm just gonna log in. Now that I have logged into GitHub, I'm going to click this button to create a new repo. I'm going to call it GitHub Basics. Now you need to decide if you want anyone to have access to the code for this project. In this case, you are going to choose a public repo, or if you want to keep it private and only you have access to see the code, you choose private. For this example, I'm going to leave it as a public repo. Now let's just click create repository. And now Git is going to give us these instructions to get started. For beginners, this might be a bit intimidating, So let's go through these steps one by one. We are not going to run all these comments, only the ones I think are more important. So the first one is the git init, which we need to do to start a Git repo in our projects folder. So going back to Visual Studio Code, this is the project we just created. So let's go to Terminal, New Terminal, and now we are going to type git init. So now we initialized a Git repo for this project, and we just need to make sure to link this repo, which is currently local to our computer, with the remote GitHub repo we just created. So let's go back to github.com, and here we have the code to link the repos. This is the add origin command. Okay, so now we can start working on this project. We can create commits, and when we want to save the current state of this project to GitHub, we can just push it to the remote server. We just created this project and started with one HTML file, so we are going to save this version as the beginning of the project. To create a new commit, you should always make sure that all files are in the staging area. You can easily check that in the source control tab. Let's go to the source control, and as you can see, it is indicating that we have some changes because we just created this HTML file as a new file, and these changes are not in the staging area. We need to make sure to add them to the staging area first before we create a commit. Using the source control panel, you can go next to the word changes, and you can click this button to add all the files at once. If you prefer to do it from the terminal, you can just type git add dot, and this is going to add all files to the staging area. Now look left to see what is going to happen. So I just ran this command, and now we can see here showing the HTML file in the staging area. This means it is going to be included in the next commit. To create a comment, you can type a message on this input field and then click commit, or to do it from the command line, you can type git commit -m and then create a message explaining what has been done in this commit. This is just the beginning of the project, so I'm going to type started the project. Now we can see in the source control panel, we don't have any pending changes. We included all current changes in a new commit, and now we just need to send this commit to GitHub. So for that, let's go back there, and here we have the command to push these changes. So let's run it here. And now we just push this commit to the remote server. And if we go back to GitHub and refresh the page, and now we can see what we just did. So we have this index.html file, which we can open, and we can see the content of the file. And we can also go here where it says one commit, and we will see all the commits created for this project. So let's create a new one so we can check if this is working. So going to Visual Studio Code, let's close this terminal window and let's start adding a new feature to this project. So I'm gonna go down here, I'm gonna add a new section. Let's call it feature ABC. And once we type some new code and save, we can see that Git is showing us that we have some new pending changes. So now let's say we just finished with this feature. So let's create a new version of the project. Again, you can add all your files to the staging area by typing git add dot from the terminal, or you can just click this button up here next to the word changes. So let's do it from here this time. We can see that now all the files are in the staging area, so they are ready to go in the next commit. So let's create a new commit, remember that from the terminal you do it with git commit-m and you type your message. From the source control panel, you just have to type the message here. Let's choose something meaningful like developed feature ABC. Now we can click commit, and to send this to GitHub, you can either use the git push command I just showed you, or even easier, you just click this button. So if we go back there now and we refresh the page, we can see that this new commit is already showing on GitHub. And if we open it, we will be able to see in detail what changes have been done in this version. Now let's go back and go to the dashboard for this repo. Now, if you created a public repo and you want to share it with friends or share it on your LinkedIn profile, you can just copy the URL at the top here, paste it whatever you want, and everyone will have access to the code you wrote, and they will also be able to clone your repo. Now, one last thing before we finish, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. If you're working on a project with other people, before you do anything in the morning, it is a good idea that you synchronize your local repo so you get all the latest changes that other developers might have pushed recently. To do that, using the source control panel, you can just go here to the three dots, go to pull, and Git is going to bring all the latest changes from GitHub. So now that you made sure that your local repo is in sync with the one on GitHub, you can now start working on your project. To do it from the terminal, you can just type git pull. And since we already did it, it is telling us that we are already up to date. So that was all for today. I hope this video was useful to you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the web schools to see more tutorials like this. So I'll see you next time.